that children have tendencies and tend to look like their parents. Isn't that amazing? And I felt like Molly and Alvin should be here in some way, but yeah, you could see. You just look around you, and you could see right away. I don't have to prove to you that children look like their parents. But do you understand that there are huge spiritual implications in that? When it comes to talking about family, there are immense spiritual implications. But Deuteronomy 6, we read you the tail end of it. But now let's go 3 verses before to verse 6. Because he talks about how, he says that these words that I command to you today shall be on your heart. You should teach them diligently to your children. He says, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house. And I just have to say, one bad thing about our culture is there are so few times now that meal times are out the window. There are so few times that families all sit down together. And what a lost opportunity to impress God's commands on our children. You shall talk of them when you sit down in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as a frontlet between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So it gives us several different verbs here, all right? Several different things that we're supposed to do as parents, as families, to impress things on our kids. Because we have this part of ourselves. The fact that you're here means that you have this part of yourself that loves God, that you have this faith, you have this desire to be His follower, and so how can we impress that on our kids? And he gives several verbs here. And the first one is to talk. He said it actually says talk and to teach, but I'm gonna just combine these. But what he does is he doesn't really tell us what to talk and what to say, but he says when to do it. And he says when you sit down in your house, meal times are a huge time you have with your kids. Kids are born needing to be fed, and I wonder if that's so that you get used to spending that time with them. I don't know, but kids are born needing to be fed, and so at the very least, when a child is born, you have meal times together. When you walk by the way, I think a good equivalent for this is a road trip, which a lot of you are about to take. There's a straightforward application here. Use that opportunity. But when you lie down and when you rise, have a really good bedtime routine with your kids. That is such an opportunity. Right before bed, I've noticed that my kids will not listen to me sometimes throughout the day, but when bedtime comes, they want one more story. They'll keep talking forever and about anything just to avoid the inevitable where you walk out and shut off the lights. What an opportunity. Use that little built-in wired thing in kids as an opportunity to talk to them and to teach them, to impress these commands on them. Then he says to bind them as a sign on your hands, as frontlets between your eyes. And you know that the Pharisees got this wrong. That they just wrote this down on little pieces of paper and put it in a box and tied it to their wrists and tied it over their foreheads. But what is God saying about your hands and your head? That these things are supposed to become part of what you do and what you think about. That you have to be the one setting an example for your kids. Your kids don't know what you think about. They know what you do. They know your actions. And if your faith is something that is just way out there that has no application to your life, then that's what your kids' faith will be, or they will have no faith at all. Your kids need to see your faith. They not only need you to talk about it and give them an explanation, but they need to see your example. The last one is interesting. He says, you shall write them on the doorposts of your house. I better keep up with myself. It's not important. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thanks. I think this is about claiming an environment. When you walk, I remember Betsy and Wynn's house that they had in Rochester. You'd walk up and their little door knocker, it said Taylor or something on it. The family that had been there before them had put this door knocker on there, and it had the family name. Their family name was written right there on the door knocker. So, and I've seen people who have had these big rocks in front. They've sandblasted their family name on there. Well, our homes are supposed to have God's name on them. We're supposed to have these things written on the doorposts of our house and our gates. We're supposed to have homes that are claimed for God, environments that our homes are supposed to be permeated. So if imagine somebody is teleported into your house, and you're not there, and they're there by themselves, and all they can do is just look around. Would they know what you believe? Well, I think there's a difference in the way a house looks. When you look around, houses reflect the kind of person that's in them. Your home, there's so many different kinds of houses. They reflect all kinds of different personalities, don't they? Well, what do people see when they look around your house? Is your house that kind of an environment? Well, God tells us how to do that. Now, like the spork, I've got 3 points that I want you to get here. Thank you, Suzanne. All right. First one is this. He's laid out everything here, how you do this. What's the implication? The implication is that biology is not what makes you a parent. There's a little boy that I know, he's actually not so little anymore, but in the church at Forest Park, and a great kid. But his dad lives just down the road from him. And he rides his four-wheeler past his dad's house all the time. And his dad never acknowledges him. Everybody knows exactly who his dad is. He looks just like his dad physically. But his dad has all kinds of problems. And this boy has other people who have stepped in, and they have been the dad for this boy. I'm not talking about biology right now. I'm talking about you're going to look like your real parent. And so for parents, for us, that means your job isn't done when you've had a kid. It's not enough to, you can't free range faith. It's what you do and how you love that makes you a parent. And what the Deuteronomy just said there is that there are certain actions that you can take to impress these things on your kids. And that is part, to me, of being a parent. Well, if you go right before that in Deuteronomy, right before those verses, it tells you what command you're supposed to be impressing on your kids. And it says that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Your heart, in the Hebrew understanding, is your inner thoughts. It's what you think about inside where nobody else can see. Your soul is your desires and your passions. I know that's not something that we're familiar with here, but in this passage, I believe that's what he's talking about. David talks about how my soul pants for you, God. I have this desire for you, God, and we're supposed to have that heart, the soul that desires and longs for God, that we love Him with our heart, but with our soul. But this other one here, your strength. In the Hebrew understanding, what they're talking about is your actions and your abilities. That as much as you are able, your actions are showing your love for God. And so as parents, we're supposed to have this focus, not so much first on loving our children. Our first focus as parents and as families is our focus on loving God. And that is one of the hardest things that you have to deal with when you have a kid. Everybody tells you all the same cliches about when you have a kid and when you hold it for the first time and how everything changes, but it's all true. It's all true. And you laugh at them when they tell you, yep. And then somebody gives you this little girl,